Hello, and welcome to another episode of Fantasy Reality. And this time, let's talk about the rules of fiction. Science, fantasy a little bit. And let me tell you one thing. They're not set in stone. And in a sense, this goes for a lot of rules of most of the fiction genres. In fact, let's start off a little bit with science fiction to give you an understanding. Back in the early part of the 20th century, and even earlier, one of the biggest questions is there life on the moon? Well, we found that out in 1969, or whenever it was. Neil Armstrong ended up on the moon. A bit of a distinct lack of life. And likewise, the question is, what about Mars? When we took pictures of its surface, again, a distinct lack of life. But before we found out about that, one made stories. There's lots of stories about life on Mars. On the moon or on Mars, to say nothing about the various stories, War of the Worlds being one of them, that I can come up with right now, and a number of other story mediums would use the whole moon thing as saying, hey, that's where life is. Well, insofar as we know, there's no life on the moon or on Mars that we can confirm. There might be life, we just haven't found it yet. But like I said, before that time, we created a lot of stories about how there was life on the moon and on Mars. But since they found out the truth, there's a distinct lack of stories about moonmen and Martians. But then again, sometimes we do come up with stories that poke fun at the whole, there's no life here, let's just go. And it turns out, 5 feet away, there's life! And one good example of that would be the movie My Favorite Martian, where you have the Mars Land Rover, or whatever it's called, and you have NASA. It's like they're looking around, nothing. Well, guys, there's no life here. Let's just shut the thing down. And like not even 10 feet away from the overhanging of a cliff, they just moved 10 feet over to this spot. They looked into a canyon, and there's Mars City. Seriously? You didn't think to look 10 more feet to find this city teeming with little people at any rate, or at least very good indications that life at least once existed? You had to think. But it's worth it. But that's a good chuckle point. You know, it's like, well, there's no life here. Let's just go home. Hey, look at this new toy from Earth. Let's disassemble it. Maybe turn it into one of them things that they like to kick around. Yeah. And and of course we got a lot of, although we still create a lot of science fiction movies involving alien movies and books involving aliens. It's just, like I said, we don't set them on the moon or on Mars these days very much, unless you create some sort of unless there's some sort of, quote, explanation, like maybe the surface of the moon or Mars is lifeless, but drill about 100 or so feet underneath the surface and you find, wow, this is pretty nice. There's life here? That does get that. Or, alternatively, the whole lifeless surface is nothing more than some sort of illusion either projected through magic or technology. That's been done in more than a few cases. But for all we know, but we have, like I said, we have Star Trek and we have Star Wars, and which deals with alien life forms, and well, I'd wager by the time the 25th century rolls around, our descendants will be laughing at the whole Star Trek thing, because either A, the whole Klingons and Vulcans thing will be considered ridiculous, because real aliens might not even remotely look humanoid. Or alternatively, dude, they might look humanoid for all we know. But like I said, I'd wager that within 500 years, those movies will be might even be considered comedies. Perhaps that's something more considered comedies even today. But when the truth is finally figured out about if there is life or if there isn't, or if we're still searching for it, who knows? Because even stories we've written within the last 20 years, some of us will look at certain parts of it and like, really? That's what we thought was going to happen? Saying nothing about stories that were written 500 years in the past. Like a lot of Shakespeare stuff being, which is well, more than a few centuries old by this point in time. We'll look at some of the stories and go, how ridiculous! Like with the whole Romeo and Juliet thing. Like, to be honest, I've never read the book. I'm not a huge fan of that. I'll admit to that. But it's like, you mean they didn't check for each other's pulses? Maybe the guy just fainted. Or, where's the body? Are you sure the person's dead? That sort of stuff. Of course, and these days we like to claim no better, but we all make mistakes. But anyways, let's get on to fantasy. And as I said, but even within fantasy itself, the rules are not set in stone. What seemed real good for, say, Tolkien with his Lord of the Rings trilogy series, well, the rules he came up with, they don't necessarily need to apply to the stories you create. I mean, we all know about Gandalf. We know that he wears a robe. We know he has a staff. But Gandalf, well, he's something of a demigod of sorts. And when it comes to when you create your own wizards, you don't need to base them off of Gandalf. No, you could do other things. Hypothetically, you could have your guys dressed up in your mate, your wizard's dressed up in armor. You know, like a knight would wear. You know, plate mail. Maybe have him carry a sword. And all that sort of crazy stuff. Good instance of that would be the Dragon series by Gordon R. Dickson, where the titular Dragon Knight, well, turns out the guy's a bit of a mage, although he does not want to use that title, because he has yet to earn the quote title, but he is a magician, which means he can use magic, but he's also a knight, or rather he claimed to be one. But basically he wears the armor of a knight. He has a sword that a knight would carry. He has a shield, which happens to be bordered in red that says, "I use magic." You know, it's a bit of a warning to anybody that can't read. They see that red and says, "Oh, this guy has magic. Might not be a good idea to mess with him." And then throw out the fact the guy can also turn himself into a dragon. There's that sort of thing going on. After all, you think you see a knight that's coming at you, only for them to turn into a dragon, and it's like, "Whoa, Nelly, whoa, Nelly!" Then, which is kind of funny when you think about it. And like I said, you don't need his bait at Tolkien. He's a good starting point. But his stuff was written in the 30s. So, and these days, we got other things we can utilize. I mean, some stories, which are more of an urban fantasy. We have wizards using smartphones. It's like, okay. It's like, Google, what do I need to use the flambe for glumbe spell? For the flambe for glumbe spell, you need the dust of a unicorn horn, the claws of a dragon, and 3 cc's of mouse blood. Oh, that's useful. This age-old book says it requires some sort of sacrifice. Oh. Well, I guess I couldn't find the right amount of, I mean, in fact, in the Discworld series, I guess you could say a little bit of a spoof there. There used to be a requirement where, for this necromancer spell, that you needed a quote virgin. What a coincidence! A lot of wizards happen to be virgins due to certain complications. But well, as it turns out, through more than a few trials and error, all you really need is a fresh egg or 3 cc's worth of mouse blood. A lot easier, don't you think? I thought a real trick is finding mice. They say nothing about a fresh egg and a seller that's not trying to sell you one that's at least 10 years old. That's a Discworld for you. They try to make the money off of everything. Especially not more pork. Well, anyways, like I said, we can change the rule, and of course these days we can change the rules. I mentioned in a previous video about situations where a centaur might allow a rider, for instance. But in a lot of depictions of fantasy, centaurs dislike the idea of being used as a mount or a beast of burden. But I gave some reasons where they might allow it. One of the big reasons is, of course, money. After all, a centaur needs to eat a lot, and therefore they need money. So, allowing themselves to be used as a beast of burden or as a mount, decent way to generate a certain amount of income. So, and that's just one way the rules can be changed. And we have people that do various discussions about what kind of weapons would these guys really utilize. And there's even like a bit of a discussion as to like how strong certain people really would be. Like with elves, some say that the elves are a little bit weak, might be a little bit weaker, and yet others might say, oh, they're just as strong as a human. They're just not. They just don't bulge out with their muscles. Which can be done where you don't look all that muscular, but you're so well toned that your muscles don't bulge out, but underneath is honed to that a fine intensity that a seemingly weaker looking person is actually just as strong, if not stronger, than a strong man. And of course there's even like some discussions about just how good would they really be with, say, archery, because one of the ideas is that they have better eyesight. It's like the question is, how good is that eyesight? It's like maybe they can see like a target that's like 200 yards away a lot clearer than a human, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are that much more accurate. Like a human probably can see that target 200 yards away and pull out that bow and arrow, loose the arrow. Well, just because you have better eyesight, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to hit the target, because you got to control wind. You got to your bow's got to make the right kind of bow. Besides nothing about any other factors. On the other hand, because of having better eyesight, at night they might be able to pick out somebody that's trying to sneak around. I see you! Try to sneak around in those trees over there! That's a plausible possibility. That maybe during the daytime they're just as accurate as a human, shall we say. But at night they might actually be a little bit superior in that they can actually see much more clearly, which might make them a little bit more accurate at night. And let's take a look at minotaurs. For the most part, they're depicted as being underground in mazes, and in some cases they're not real smart. But what if used to chase things up a bit? What if they're actually at least as smart as a human, and you'll find them playing chess? I say, if you submit with this one to here, I'd be able to move this one to here, and at which point you would be checkmate. I'm going to move my brief back before we call it, then. Yeah, you can have fun. I mean, that's the thing about fantasy. You can actually have fun with it. You can poke fun with it, and that, of course, you have the playing with the tropes. So, I did when I was writing a little bit about quote about stereotypes for this website I'm on. I discussed how like trolls depicted that, well, trolls and ogres are and the like are looked at as being dumb, and only said me smash. Actually, that might be the ogres. They're usually considered to be simple-minded, being brute force. Well, whatever the truth is, those guys are real smart. So smart, or just plain so good at talking so fast, it's like we only hear a couple of words. And I actually gave a bit of an example where it's like, let's see, the applicate amount of force needed for me to smash your armor is 30k joules. This guy's gonna hit me with a really big knife. Run! Or, alternatively, they're looking at a door, and you have the thief or the mage, and they're trying to figure out where is that lock that I can use that I can pick so that the door can open. Or where's that unlock door spell at? And of course the ogre, he looks at the two, finds a club, and realizes all you need is the right amount of force. A smash. It's quite funny when you can do that sort of stuff. And that's what's so great about fantasy, is there aren't any rules. Because, well, there are some rules, but for the most part, they're not set in stone. That is the beauty about being able to write fiction. We can make up our own rules. Although, when you're making them up, you better make sure there's at least a certain amount of internal consistency between when you're making rules. Like, and some people, they'll look at movies and it's like, wait a minute, if he did that, why didn't he do that earlier? Or, why didn't he do that thing like what he did earlier? One has to be careful about certain things, because we create our own rules. And we might want to make sure that we follow them. Well, like I said, that's of course, like I said, that's fun part about fiction. As I said, we create our own rules. Real trick is, okay, what rules are we doing? What rules are we creating? Like, for instance, if you have a mage, but it's like, the question is there a reason why we don't give this mage armor? We create one. It's that magic and armor don't mix. A good way, for instance, if you're wearing metal armor, it could be that the magical energies you turn into a really crispy mage. Or that maybe if you're wearing, like, say, a real thick gambeson type armor, that maybe it's just your movements aren't coordinated enough, and then, okay, not good for the clothes. Someone give me a pair of trousers. Or, you can have, and that might explain as to why your mage doesn't wear armor. That, like I said, magic and armor, they don't mix in that situation, because the metal armor turns you into a magic lightning rod, and wearing thick cloth armor messes up the finer movements. On the other hand, you can set it up so that way your mage has no problems wearing armor. But, which might be useful in a fight, but you can set things up so that way the armor's the only thing that they can utilize, like maybe they're not that real good with a sword, where even a novice swordsman can disarm them. Although, you could set things up so that way, or it's like, can we talk about this? It's like, you wielding a sword and you don't know how to use it. This is just ridiculous. Right. Steel-toed stop shoes. Oh. You can have fun with that part too. It's just like I said, you create your own rules. Where you can poke fun at the usual stereotypes, where as far as fantasy is concerned, or you can figure out how do you play it straight and justify certain tropes, which is always good to know. And it's a great way to have more than a bit of fun with it. I mean, like I said, could be that your mage can use armor. He just can't use melee weapons because he wasn't trained on how to use melee weapons. And maybe he's not strong enough to use a longbow effectively. But with that crossbow, maybe he just ain't real good at aiming because... Where's my glasses? Ah! You're wearing glasses! Really? Fireball! Laugh right off! It's always worth a laugh. So, like I said, we create our own rules where fantasy is concerned. The real trick is making sure that they are consistent, at least in the story's run. So, that's it for this episode of Fantasy Reality. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.